I show you stuff like this all the time, and it seems that the national debt has stalled at $21.1 trillion. But these numbers aren't even accurate. We've discussed this before. When you look at headlines like this is one of the main reasons that I like Colin from Noble Gold so much, is because he explains this stuff so even I can understand it, because I'm not big into finances whatsoever at all, because I don't have any. You see what I'm saying? It's amazing to me how everything is being set up around us like a house of cards, and people still are betting the farm, no pun intended, on 401ks and other things like that that just aren't going to be there when the time comes. And you know what I find ridiculous? I never knew that this was on the national debt clock, but seeing how this is America, you can find out your favorite celebrity's net worth. I mean, how ridiculous is this? Seriously, how ridiculous is this? These people are celebrating the fact that they have managed to make whomever they would like rich and famous, while bilking the rest of the American public out of whatever. Unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. Okay, so once again, I'm joined by my friend Colin Plume from Noble Gold. Colin, what's up, brother? How you feeling today? You look good.
Feeling good, Richie. Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Nice, nice. I like that backdrop you got going there. It's pretty professional. It's not as good as my pale yellow wall, but
yeah. Well, that next time I'm going to go with the wall.
There you go. There you go. It's always a good color choice. It's better than having the sun blaring directly through the window, which is really at any rate. Now, I mentioned to you real quick before we hit the button. I found this article on Seeking Alpha, and it turns out it's a website that you follow also. It's by Alistair McLeod, which doesn't sound real. At any rate, it could be a pen name, who knows, or it's just me. He was quoting General Charles de Gaulle from February 65, and it said, naturally, the smooth termination of the gold exchange standard, the restoration of the standard, and supplementary measures that have been called for, in particular with a view to organizing international credit on the new basis, will have to be deliberately agreed upon between countries, in particular those where there devolves special responsibility by virtue of economic and financial capabilities. And the general got in a lot of trouble for that. The people that run things, the people that behind the Federal Reserve, they weren't feeling that. They weren't loving that. But right below that, there's a paragraph that I'm showing on the screen right now, and it says there's been a collapse twice before, 20s, 66 to 68, and it says we've got another one coming, and it says even gold won't save the dollar, but gold will still be the yardstick, because gold is gold is gold is gold.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think people forget that, we were on a gold standard for a long time, and that's really the reason we became the world reserve currency in 1944, the Bretton Woods Exchange, is because Great Britain was going through a heavy inflationary period. They were struggling paying off debts after World War II, and so they ran into a position where the world basically said the debt's too high, and other countries wanted a currency that was more stable, and we were more stable. We were backed by gold, and so that's how we became the currency of the world. Now we've been off the gold standard. Our inflation is at an extraordinary level. They say in the last 15 years, the dollar's lost about 30% buying power. Everybody feels it on a day-to-day basis, and gold is something that there is a limited supply. It's difficult to mine gold, even with all the gold mines and all over the world. A lot of people don't know this. The amount of gold in the world only grows by 1% per year. And so as opposed to the dollar, which can just be printed, the printing presses are running at all times. This is an asset that has that scarcity, and that's why investors have been investing in it, especially right now. The equity markets, the stock markets are inflated. People are moving into gold. They like that stable, almost kind of insurance policy type of asset, and they know that over time it'll just steadily go up. And I think that's what people want right now. They don't want volatility. They want something that's going to be stable for their portfolio.
And that makes sense. It amazes me that it doesn't amaze me. It doesn't amaze me that more investment people aren't pushing their customers financial genius in any way whatsoever at all, because in order to be one, you'd have to have finances to be a genius about, and that's not me. There's an article I just found real quick while getting ready for this, and it says how bankrupt Venezuela could shut down the world economy for oil catastrophe loans. How is it that that's even a headline? Could this really occur just from one country? Could it KO everybody?
I think it's tough to think that one country could knock us out, especially with the oil prices. There's oil mined all over the world and pulled out of the ground all over. Oil prices are going up. Barrels of oil were a little bit above 70 as of yesterday, and so we are seeing that inflation kick in. Also, there's also talks that oil prices could go above 100 a barrel, which basically would mean $7-8 a gallon gas for you and I. Which coming into the summer here, everyone's traveling and going on trips with their family. That's going to really put a damper on things if you're spending double than what you thought on gas. And so these are the kind of small little things in terms of inflation that people are forgetting about. Oil prices pull back, they forget. But once we see oil go to where it probably will end up, $7-8 a gallon. You also have the 10-year Treasury at 3.25. A lot of people aren't watching this housing bubble. The housing bubble it's on the brink of collapsing. Everybody remembers when home loans go above 5%. They're at 4.75 right now. Most people aren't going to be able to afford that mortgage. Most corporations aren't going to be able to afford to cover that increase in cost to borrow money. They're even talking about interest rates going up to 6% on home mortgages, which historically it's still pretty low. You go back to the 80s, we had home mortgages at 15 to 18%. But in the last 15 to 20 years, we haven't seen interest rates hit 6% at all ever. Even in 2008, they never hit 6%. Right. If they hit 6% now, a lot of people are going to be in trouble. The housing market will pull back. That's why we always say, we always talk about that your home is not really an investment. You always have to hang your hat somewhere. You lock in a home and a mortgage so that you're protected against rising costs of rent, which rents have skyrocketed over the last 5 years. So right now, what people are doing is they're looking at their finances, taxes were just paid, and they're saying, okay, if I'm overexposed in certain areas, maybe I need to take a little bit out of the pie, of the equity pie or the money, and move it into something tangible, something physical like gold and silver. And I think silver is just ready to take off. Everyone I talk to, they can't believe that the price has been suppressed, in the low $16 range right now. It's a phenomenal buying opportunity to get into silver right now.
Well, speaking of that, I got up on the. So, when you're talking about silver prices and how, it's obvious. I don't follow the markets whatsoever at all, but I always keep an eye on how much gold and silver is per ounce, and it's amazing. Everything else skyrockets. Food, bread, milk, gasoline. I just made a video complaining about gasoline the other day, $3.50 a gallon.
Right.
For what?
Right.
But at any rate, I found this story where California regulators are now mandating on the construction of all new homes that they have to use solar panels. Now, most people don't understand solar panels are loaded with silver.
Yep.
So do you think that's going to bring the price up?
Absolutely. And here's the thing you have to know about California and real estate. The whole country follows California in terms of real estate law. So just because California started this, eventually all the other states are going to follow suit. We're going to see solar panels being a requirement on all new homes, which the upfront load is expensive. It costs anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 right now to put those on. But obviously the grand scheme of it is hopefully for everyone buying those homes that their day-to-day costs will be lower because they won't be covering all the energy that they would if they don't have it. So I think in the grand scheme of the future, it's probably a good thing. I think most states will follow suit on this. But what the silver miners that I'm talking to are saying, we're not prepared. We're not prepared for this kind of rush into silver. They're not ready. So the silver miners are revving up their engines. They're starting to hire again because they're prepared for this big rush on silver. And really, Richie, we're sort of the last ones doing this. If you go to China and you're in the middle class in China, everybody in the middle class that gets a new home is putting solar panels. So if you go to anywhere in Asia, they're doing the exact same thing. So we're just catching up to the rest of the world. That's why China has been buying, silently been buying silver mines for the last 5 years, because they know that demand is going to continue to increase. And really what's interesting about silver, not only is that it's an IRA approved metal, is that if it goes back to where it was in 2011, if you put that in your IRA, the amount of money that an investor would make would just be phenomenal. I mean, we're talking about going from 16 up to 50, which is not unrealistic. That was only 6 years ago. It was at $50 an ounce.
I remember that because I was stacking back then. I remember that for a fact.
Absolutely. It was running. And, the great thing about doing it in your IRA with silver is that with storage, we have a flat rate we've negotiated at the storage. It's all segregated storage. So literally you could get in today. If it doubles or triples or quadruples, you can take that profit, we'll buy it back from you, and you can keep that cash in your IRA. So you could turn, 20,000 into 100,000 pretty easily if that were to happen. I was there. I had many clients do it with us. It was a great feeling to see them just really grow their retirement account. And so it is a possibility right now to get into silver. It's one of those investments not everybody's talking about. It's not as kind of exciting as some of the other ones that are out there, but I think that it's definitely undervalued right now, and I think a lot of people will be talking about it. It'll be in the news pretty heavy over the next 2 to 3 years.
Now, just to reiterate one more time, the reason silver and solar panels are going together is silver is used primarily. There's a heavy amount of silver used in every solar panel in order for it to convert sun, because I have solar panels.
Yep.
So I'm pretty much hip to it. The only issue that we're having, this is totally neither here nor there, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, is that we really haven't seen the sun in Massachusetts in about 100 days.
that
of course, they're still going to mandate it, so there's that.
Yeah, I mean, that is the downside, and hopefully, when the sun comes, you get enough energy to cover the time when it's dark, and, that's, the technology is going to continue to grow.
They've got badass technology, because I use this on my vehicle. I can literally park anywhere, pop out a suitcase solar panel, and it charges my batteries while the truck's not. I use them all the time.
Wow. Yeah, no, it sounds like you're ahead of the game in terms of this for a lot.
That's me, Colin. I'm always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so I think and solar panels is just one use, Richie. I mean, what we're talking on right now, the computers, the cell phone, every cell phone has silver in it. Yep. All the energy efficient vehicles, the Teslas and the Volt, the batteries have silver. So, I mean, this is just one use. The solar panels that are going to be everyone's forced to put on their homes by 2020. So, I think there's a lot of uses, and a lot of people remember, the early 80s when the Hunt brothers tried to control the market. There was only 200 to 300 uses of silver when it hit $50 an ounce in the early 80s. Now there's thousands of uses. So, when the silver, growth is going to happen, nobody exactly knows. But to say that it's going to stay where it's at, I think is unrealistic. I think that it's going to be something. And, the nice thing about it, if the dollar, a lot of people say, well, what happens if the dollar collapses? You're going to want to have silver. Silver makes the perfect sense to trade and barter with, because you can have small pieces of silver to buy groceries, to pay for goods. I actually, many years ago, my father was telling me that he had a mechanic and he used to do a lot of work for us. And this guy loved to get paid in silver. He loved to get silver as the way that he got paid. So I think a lot of people, when they're smart and they're watching things, if they could choose to get paper money, or if they can choose to get something physical that's going to go up over time, they're always going to choose the physical option. And so, I think that a lot of people that haven't acquired it, we have silver guides that talk about the main reasons people are buying it. We have our gold and silver investment guide that can explain that also. But I think that the opportunity is pretty phenomenal right now.
Well, it makes sense, because the way everybody uses credit cards, EM, what are those things called?
EBT?
No,
debit cards?
ATM cards, yeah.
ATM cards,
cash. It's going to come to the point where people are going to try
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes the only downside sometimes of silver is when you have a lot of it is storing it. That's why we offer storage for clients, or there's different places that they can store their silver. But I think it's a metal that has a lot of uses. It makes sense, and there's only, in the last 200 years, there's only two fiat currencies left. There's the pound and the dollar. So when they're going to collapse, I don't know, but every other currency has collapsed. On a small scale, we've always talked about this, what happened in Zimbabwe. They have these $10 billion notes. This currency was around for about 10 years. And then in 2009, obviously people thought having a $10 billion or $10 trillion note didn't make any sense. And so they had to go to another currency, another paper currency. So I think going back kind of old school, so to speak, and focusing on things that have a limited supply. I mean, that's really what we talk about. Gold and silver, there's only a certain amount of it out there. It's used in industry. Even gold, they're used in computers in different places. So
without a doubt, iPhones loaded with them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why a lot of people, when they if they get rid of iPhones, they'll pull the gold out of them because there's value there. So I think that we're going back to basics. I hope we're going back to basics. And yeah, it's easy to fall in love with what's happening with stocks and bonds, and a lot of people are there. But unfortunately, what happens, and everyone can look back on this, whenever there's a pullback in the stock market, it happens very quickly, and a lot of people aren't prepared for it. If you look at 2008, 2001, 1994, 1987, all those corrections happen in 3 months or faster. So be prepared. Just look at your options, and that's what we recommend, is just make sure that you're diversified with your holdings.
I lost you for a second. It must have been something that you said. But the last thing I was telling you is that people are really, really quick to leave a bad review if they get bad service. And then on the other hand, when somebody has a good experience, they usually don't even talk about it. I've received a couple dozen emails over the last couple of months saying that you guys have done exactly what you said, and no one has an issue as of yet. I mean, other than the troll army, but they're just doing their job.
No, I think what we take every client, no matter how much money they have, it's important to us. And, I'm involved, Charles and I are involved in every aspect of this, from the shipping to the storage to the metals. We get on the phone with clients if they have questions. So I think they're going to get the personal service that they've been missing. A lot of people say that, when they left their employer, that nobody called them, nobody was interested. They're not going to have that experience here. We really pride ourselves in being involved. We know, our clients' families and their situations, and, we try to make it as easy as possible for them. So I appreciate that, Richie, because we do try hard to make sure we get the best experience, and I think we accomplish that more often than not.
No, without a doubt. There's only a couple of people that I roll with, and you guys have come through exactly as you said every time. And speaking about being involved in every issue, which one of you guys packages everything? Because you don't mess around. It was hard to open that package, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, we want it to be nondescript and hard to understand or what's in there, because I think from a client's point of view, the more that the privacy is involved, more that nobody knows what you're getting.
Right.
I mean, it could be you're getting a basketball or something in the mail from Amazon. I mean, nobody would know what they have except for the weight. The weight is, obviously some of the things are pretty heavy, but besides that, nobody would know what you're receiving. We do that for a very specific reason. Also, packaging it up tight makes sure that the content and the coins and the bars are kept in perfect condition, which a lot of people don't realize that that's important. You want to make sure that the quality of the product is there. And I think that when you receive our product, we make sure that it's the best quality, the purity's there, and also the coins and bars look really good, which is important.
Indeed. So one more time, the IRA, you want to run through that one more time, because I'm going to forget it.
Absolutely. So anybody that rolls over this month, they roll over their IRA with us in precious metals. We're going to go ahead and waive the first year startup fees for them, which is about $450. Included in that, when they do it, once the metals arrive at the depository, we're the only company that does this. We actually have the vault manager come out, take a photo. It's called a proof of purchase, and we send that to the client. We pay extra so the client can see their inventory that's in their IRA. It's all segregated storage at the depository, which is very important. So we're going to include that all for the first year. So everybody that calls in from Richie for this month, all those fees are going to be covered for the first year for the custodian, the depository, and the setup fee.
That's awesome. You can't ask for more than that. All right,
Absolutely.
Colin, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you calling back. I'm not sure why we lost that, but I guess it happens.
It happens. Thanks, Richie. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to talking to you soon.
All
right,
all the links will be in the description. Richie from Boston, Colin Plume. We are out.